Bonjour and good morning. Welcome to WASA Distance Education and PLAR English. And today in class, we are going to get started in Lesson 2. So because we finished Lesson 1, that means that you need to get all of your key questions finished and get them sent out to me for marking as soon as possible. Because we're starting Lesson 2 this week, you need to get Lesson 1 done so that you can focus on Lesson 2. So Lesson 2 is very short, and we will only one class this week, but we'll be finishing up Lesson 2 next week on Monday because, like I said, it's a very short lesson. So, of course, that means get Lesson 1 done and out of the way. Just a few things to begin with. As just a reminder that there are two ways to participate in class. You can participate on radio or you can participate using Zoom. The instructions for joining the classes are in your study guide, or you can talk to your DEC or contact me. All PLAR English students are welcome to attend classes, so it doesn't matter if you're signed up for Radio, Zoom, or IL. You can still attend the PLAR English classes or listen to the recorded classes. The PLAR classes, Radio Zoom classes are a tutorial, so just adds to what is in your lesson. To contact me, you can use email, phone, or send a message on Facebook, whatever works better for you. Students working on the PLAR from last year can keep working on the key questions and continue to submit them. PLAR classes from last year are still available on YouTube and are updated as I record the new classes. So you'll notice that some classes are old, some are new. So the new classes are the ones that I'm recording this year, and the old classes are still there for any students who are working ahead of where we are in class. So you can still get some help. Just a reminder again that this year we're doing something new with PLAR, so students can choose to write the culminating activity before doing the key questions and the lessons. Then if you pass the culminating activity, you don't have to do the lessons and the key questions, and then you can just move on to the next subject. If you're not successful with the culminating activity, or basically the test, then you will have to do the lessons and complete the key questions. Then once you've done that, then you can write another culminating activity after all the work is finished. Okay, so just so that you get that little bit of extra help that you need to get you through the culminating activity. Again, just a reminder that in your lessons there are two types of questions. There are support questions and there are key questions. Remember that just the support questions you do not submit. They are practice for you to do before you do the key questions. The key questions are the questions that you submit to me for marking. Okay. The support questions are scattered throughout the lesson. So you read a section, there's a support question. You read another section, there's another support question. The answers to those support questions are near the end of the lesson, and they're right before the key questions. So you will see a page at the top of the page. It says answers to support questions. So you can find the answers there. Check your answers, the answers that you wrote to the support questions against the ones at the back, and see how you're doing. If you're doing really well with the support questions, then you move on to the key questions. The key questions are the ones that you get marks for. Those are the ones that you submit to me for marking. There are several different ways to submit your work. The first way is to give it to your DEC, and then your DEC will send it out to us here in Sioux Lookout. If you don't have a learning center in your community, or your learning center is closed for whatever reason, your DEC may be away or something like that, you can submit your own work. Okay, there are several different ways to do that. So if you have access to a scanner, you can scan and then email your own work. To the student work email, so studentwork@nnec.on.ca, and make sure that you CC it to me, or you can fax it to our toll-free number if you have access to a fax machine. If that doesn't work for you, then you can use your smartphone. With your smartphone, you can either take photos of your work or you can scan your work using the built-in scanner on your smartphone. And you can either email it, again, to the student work email and CC it to me, or you can send it via Facebook Messenger. So take pictures and send them on Messenger. And so you can submit any of your work through Messenger, the culminating activity or your key questions, whatever it is you're doing. Okay, you can also, if you are in Sioux Lookout or the surrounding area and you come to Sioux Lookout often, or if you're in Sioux Lookout for work or you live in Sioux Lookout, you can drop your work off at WASA. There is a drop box located in the parking lot, the side of the building facing the post office, or you can knock on the front door and give it to whoever answers the door. Make sure, I should have mentioned this before, but when you're submitting your own work, make sure that you put your name on the work, okay? Because otherwise, we don't know who it's from. You can also include the course code and your teacher's name. Okay, that way we know who it's for, we know who it's from, and we know which course it is. Okay, so include that on your work. You can also use Google Docs to do your work, and then you can send me a link. And you can use Google Classroom. So if you want to use Google Classroom, please contact me about that. Okay, so we'll start off with a review of what we covered in our last class. So last week we had we finished up lesson 1, and the last thing we talked about in lesson 1 was writing paragraphs. So you will have to write paragraphs throughout the lessons. So it's important to know how to do that. So to write a successful paragraph, first of all, you need to choose 3 to 4, at least 4 related details. So facts and information about your topic. So what do you want to say about your topic? Identify the main idea of your paragraph in the topic sentence. So as I mentioned last week, when you write your topic sentence, it's not a title. Okay, how to make moccasins. How to make moccasins is a title. It's not a complete sentence. So your sentence to introduce your topic is going to be something like, it's easy to make moccasins, or making moccasins is a lot of work, or I love making moccasins. Okay, something like that that introduces your topic. You don't say my paragraph is going to be about. That's not how it works. It's just like if you're telling somebody how to do something, you don't say, I'm going to tell you how to do this. You just start telling them. Okay, use the 4 related details to create 3 to 5 supporting sentences. So your paragraph will have a topic sentence, then it will have supporting sentences, and then it will have a concluding sentence. Okay, so 3 important parts. So the paragraph structure, this is for an informative text because that's what we looked at last week, but it has the same basic structure. So you introduce, so that's your topic sentence to introduce your paragraph. Then you write down your facts or your details. Okay, so facts about the topic in a logical order. So if you're telling somebody how to do something, make sure that you're writing it in order of first, second, third, fourth, etc. Otherwise, it's all mixed up, and the person that you're trying to give the information to is not going to get the correct information. It's important to include subject-specific language, so language that applies to that subject. Okay, so if you're I don't know, talking something about science, then you're going to use scientific language. Or if it's about math, then you're going to use math language in there. And then, of course, the third part is your conclusion. So this is the summary paragraph or the paragraph that concludes or ends your paragraph. Okay, and again, your concluding sentence is not going to be, this is the end of my paragraph. Okay, it's going to go back to your introductory paragraph, refer back to it, and basically all you're doing is saying the same thing but in a different way. Okay, here's an example. Okay, so this is an example of formative writing. So again, the parts of informative writing, so the topic sentence. Did you know that bats are the only mammal that can fly? So this is actually asking a question, which is fine. You can ask a question. Do you know how hard it is to make moccasins? Or do you know how hard it is to scrape a moose hide? Something like that can be your topic sentence. And then after you read that question or that statement, you know that, okay, the rest of this paragraph is going to tell me about making moccasins or scraping a moose hide. The difficulty involved. Or the fun, whatever. So then, next, you're going to write your facts or your details about, in this case, bats being the only mammals that can fly. So, first detail, a bat's wing has long arm bones with very long finger bones. That's your first detail. Second detail, bats can fly as fast as 15 miles per hour. Third detail, after flying, a bat lands and flips upside down to hang by its toe claws. So we have this transition phrase here, after flying. So it connects the previous sentence about how fast that they can fly to what they do after they're done flying. Okay, and then we have our closing sentence. So our closing sentence sums up the paragraph and lets us know that it's done. So bats are really cool mammals. So we're talking about bats being mammals. That refers back to our topic sentence. That, did you know that bats are the only mammal that can fly? Bats and mammals. Okay, so that's how you write a information paragraph. It doesn't have to be really long. It doesn't have to be a whole page. Just as long as you are giving about 3 details, the 3 bits of information about your topic. So topic sentence, 3 to 4 facts, as many as you want, and you can elaborate on those facts. A bat's wing has long arm bones with very long finger bones. And you might say, it's hard to tell because it's covered in a leathery wing or something like that. Okay, bats can fly as fast as 15 miles per hour. You can say they don't always travel that fast, but they can. Okay, after flying, a bat lands and flips upside down to hang by its toe claws. Bats always sleep upside down, or something like that. So you can add a little bit more detail to those facts. Okay, so that is an information paragraph, and that was the last thing we looked at in Lesson 1. So now we're going to start on Lesson 2, and in Lesson 2 we're going to focus on reading comprehension. Okay, all my contact information is right there on the front cover, as I've mentioned before. Okay, so Lesson 2. There are only 2 key questions in Lesson 2. So the first thing we're going to look at is reading literary texts and responding to literary texts. So literary texts basically are anything that you read. Short story, poem, novel, news article. Those are all different types of literary texts. Okay, so basically a text is just something that's in print. And then our second topic we're going to look at on Monday is reading and responding to news articles. Okay, so today we're going to focus on the short story. So on the first page of the lesson is the introduction. In this lesson you will have the opportunity to review some of the elements of literary texts. There are many different kinds of literary texts, such as short stories, poems, novels, plays, and screenplays. And in this lesson, we're going to focus on the short story. When you do more senior English courses, you will be looking at different types of literary texts. We hear and tell stories every day. Stories, also known as narratives, can tell us where we came from who we are and what we might become. Our lives are full of stories. Gossip, news broadcasts, movies, television shows, and even video games are all examples of the types of narratives that exist around us. This lesson will give a brief overview of some of the key characteristics of narratives and some strategies for reading them and responding to them. We will also spend some time reviewing the elements of news articles, and we'll read and respond to them. Okay, so reading comprehension. So there's information on reading comprehension in your lesson beginning on page 3, continuing on page 4, 5, 6. Support questions 18 is on page 7. So this is a little bit about reading comprehension, and that continues on page 9, support question number 19. So make sure you do those support questions and then check your answers at the end of the lesson. Okay, so let's start then. What is reading comprehension? So reading comprehension is the ability to understand written words. So if you pick up something, anything you pick up to read, if you can read it and understand, get meaning from it, then that's reading comprehension. Okay, if you pick something up, when I taught primary many moons ago, I had kids in my class that could read words. So I could show them words on a page. They could read every word, but they got nothing from it. It made no sense to them. It was just a bunch of words. So they didn't have very good reading comprehension. Okay, so we all need reading comprehension in order to be able to understand what we're reading. It is different, so reading comprehension is different from the ability to recognize words. Okay, you can, like I said, whole list of words. People can read the whole list of words. They can read a bunch of words in a sentence. A friend of mine is suffering from a brain problem right now, and she told me she can read words. So if I give her something to read, she can read every word on that page, but it makes no sense to her. She can recognize the words, she can read the words, but she can't put them together to make sense from them. So recognizing words on a page but not knowing what they mean does not fulfill the purpose or goal of reading, which is comprehension. That's why we read. We read to get information, to understand something. Reading comprehension is essential for successful functioning in our society. In virtually all instances, the goal of reading is to identify the meaning or message of the text at hand. That's why we read, like I said, to get information. So there are different comprehension strategies. So if you're struggling with reading, there are some things that you can do. Generally, we tell people who are struggling with reading comprehension to read more. Okay, start at a level that you can understand. It might be a kid's book. It doesn't matter. Just start at that level and then you work your way up. So you start reading, for example, kids' books, and you make sure you understand what's going on in the story. Then after you've read several, who knows how many, then you move on to something that's a little bit harder, young adult, for example. When you can understand those books, then you can move on to adult novels or science novels or whatever, science journals or whatever you want to read. Okay, but you have to build up to it. It doesn't happen overnight. Okay, so other than just reading, some strategies that we can use. First one is predicting. So predictions require making guesses about what might happen. So for example, if you are looking out the window in the evening and the sky is red and there's a beautiful sunset, then you might predict that tomorrow is going to be a nice day. Okay, so you're guessing about something. Predictions are made based on what you see, hear, or read relative to the book's cover, title, pictures, drawings, table of contents, and headings. Okay, so you make predictions based on, so if I'm, for example, if I'm picking out a book to read, I will look at the cover. Not every book has a picture on the cover, so here's one story that I have read. Julie of the Wolves. So I look at that and I see there's a wolf there. There's an Inuit girl. It says Julie of the Wolves, so I'm assuming that that's Julie. I'm guessing that that's Julie, and I'm guessing that that wolf she has something to do with that wolf. Either they become friends or that wolf is, after her or something like that. I don't know. But Julie of the Wolves makes me think that she befriends a wolf. Okay, so then the next thing I would do is flip to the back cover of that book and read the synopsis. Not every book has a synopsis at the end, but most do, and it will just tell you a little bit about basically the plot of the book. It doesn't give you all the details, of course, because it's just maybe a couple of sentences, but it will give you an idea of what the story is about. So then you can decide whether or not you want to read it. So generally, if I'm looking at a book, that's what I do. Look at the cover, then flip it over and read the synopsis on the back. Sometimes I might flip through it and read a few sentences here and there. So based on that, I predict what the book is going to be about and whether or not I'm going to like it. Okay, so that's one strategy. Another strategy is making connections to prior knowledge. So prior knowledge means your own experiences. Or something that you've read before, or something that you've watched before. So prior knowledge is what you've learned before, what you've done before, what you've seen before. So making connections to prior knowledge requires relating your own experiences to something in the story. So sometimes in the senior courses, in an English course, you might be asked, how would you feel if you were in that situation? So in that case, you have to think, okay, well, how would I feel if that happened to me? So it's relating, I'm scared of wolves. So, what would I do in that situation? So you think about those things. The goal is to use prior knowledge to help make sense of the text you read. Okay, so based on, what's in the story as you're reading the story. If they're talking about it's cold, then you might think about a time when you were cold and how you felt about it. Okay, or if she meets a wolf, you might think maybe at some point you met a wolf, or you watched a show where somebody met a wolf and it was a bad experience, or you read another book about somebody meeting a wolf. Those types of things. So you think back to those things to help you understand what's going on here. Prior knowledge can include experiences or knowledge of words, places, animals, or events. So anything in your experience, in your own experience, that can help you relate to the book. So here's a quote from the book. Then the airplane droned in the distance, grew louder, then fainter, then louder again. Okay, so most of us who live in the north have experienced that. So you're at the airport, for example, or you're out in the bush and you hear a plane coming. Okay, you can hear it in the distance and it gets louder and louder and louder. Then maybe it turns, moves away from you, and it gets fainter and fainter and fainter. And then it gets louder again. So then you go, oh, that plane is circling. I wonder why it's circling. Is it looking for somewhere to land? So you think about all these things. The pilot was circling, waiting to see if the weather might suddenly clear so he could land. Okay, so, and again, that's something that most of us have experienced. You're at the airport, you're waiting to go out, or you're go home. The weather's not so great. You hear the plane coming. Yeah, it's not going to be able to land because the weather is bad. Or he's trying to land despite the weather being bad, or trying to wait a few minutes for the weather to clear so he can land. So we can make a connection to that experience. Okay. Another strategy is questioning. Asking and answering questions about text is another strategy that helps us focus on the meaning of text. So, reading something and going, well, I wonder why she did that, and it might not explain it right away. Okay, so you might go, I wonder why she did that. Maybe it was because she saw the wolf do it. Okay, so asking and answering questions. Next is making inferences. In order to make inferences, so inferences are kind of like guesses, but guesses that are based on something that we've read. So in order to make inferences about something that is not explicitly stated in the text, we must learn to draw on prior knowledge and recognize clues in the text itself. So, you might say that Julie is a very brave girl. Okay, it doesn't come out and say straight out in the text that she's a brave girl, but based on what you're reading about her, you might infer that she's very brave. Okay, or you might say she's stupid. Okay, so you make inferences based on what you read, even though it's not saying she's a brave girl or she did something stupid or whatever. Okay, so here's an example. Tony walked out of the shopping mall with his arms full of bags and the sun shining on him. As he approached his car, he started awkwardly feeling around in his pockets with his arm full of bags. He did not find what he was looking for, so he transferred the bags on one arm to the other arm. So, we've probably all done that at some point. You're trying to find something, can't find it, take all the bags, instead of putting them down, we put them all on one arm. So all of the bags now are on one arm. Tony had a lot of bags on one arm. He still couldn't find what he was looking for. So now you're thinking, okay, he walked out of the shopping mall, lots of bags, digging his pocket for something. He's walking over to his car. You're probably guessing by now what he's looking for. Now he dropped the bags and plunged both hands desperately into all of the pockets on his jeans. With a look of despair, Tony ran to his car. He tried to open the door, but it was locked. Then he saw something on the passenger seat of the car. He stopped looking and pulled his phone out of his pocket. Okay, so you might have been thinking that he was looking for his phone, but no, he pulled his phone out of his pocket. So what do you think he's looking for? So a couple of questions to make you think about this now. Why does Tony get so frantic? So why is he getting frantic? And we know he's getting frantic because it says, now he dropped the bags and plunged both hands desperately into all the pockets on his jeans. So he's frantically checking all of his jeans. Why does he get so frantic? Because he can't find what he's looking for. Okay, Tony gets frantic because he can't find what he's looking for. So this is actually an exercise in answering questions too. So when we answer questions in writing, we need to make sure we use complete sentences. So why does Tony get so frantic? Because he can't find what he's looking for. Because he can't find what he's looking for, and we talked about this in lesson 1. So that part, because he can't find what he's looking for, is a sentence fragment. Okay, it's not complete. Well, if we didn't know what the question was and we just read because he can't find what he's looking for, we would have no idea what that was about. Okay, so we need to make sure that we use a complete sentence. So our complete sentence would be, the question is, why does Tony get so frantic? So Tony gets frantic because, and make that into a lowercase b, because he can't find what he's looking for. Now it's a complete sentence. Question B, how do you know this? So how do you know this? Then you would start by saying, I know this because he plunged both hands desperately into all the pockets of his jeans. Okay, so because he plunged both hands desperately into all the pockets of his jeans. That would be the correct answer. Okay, C. What does Tony see on the passenger seat? Okay, Tony sees, what does he see? He tried to open the door, but it was locked. Then he saw something on the passenger seat of the car. Doesn't say what he saw. What do you think he saw? Tony sees what he's looking for, of course, his keys on, not just Tony sees his keys. Where does he see them? On the passenger seat. Okay, that is a complete sentence. Letter D, how do you know this? How do we know he sees his keys on the seat? I know this because, how do you know it's his keys? Because he can't find his keys because they're on the seat. He sees them on the seat. Da, da, da. Okay. Why is Tony getting on the phone? Why do you think he's getting on the phone? So this is because it doesn't say why he's getting on the phone. It just says he stopped looking and pulled his phone out of his pocket. So in this case, what would you do if you couldn't get your keys? You wouldn't break the window in your car. What would you do? Generally, every car has a spare set of keys. So why is he getting on the phone? So Tony is using his phone to call, and we're guessing here, his girlfriend to bring the spare key. Or you might say he's calling a locksmith. We don't know who he's calling, so we're guessing about who might be calling. So, and again, how do you know this? Okay, I know this because something similar happened to me. I locked my keys in the car. Okay, so the how do you know this question can be because it's written, because it says there in the passage, or because it happened to you. Okay. Another strategy is visualizing. So visualizing requires creating a mental image of what you read from the text. So if you're reading, for example, a novel or a short story and there's no pictures anywhere, then you might create an image in your mind of what the characters, what you think the characters look like. So if they're described as having, brown hair, green eyes, tall, thin, well-dressed, so you might try to create a mental image. You might imagine someone you know fits that description, but you make a mental image in your mind. The mental image helps you understand, recall details, remember, and draw conclusions from the things you encountered while reading. So again, visualizing is based on our experiences. If you've never met anybody that's tall or brown hair with green eyes, you'd have a hard time visualizing that. So it's based on what we know, what we've read before. And another strategy is summarizing. So this strategy involves, when reading, identifying the main idea in the text and putting the idea into your own words. Okay, so figuring out what the main idea of the story is and putting it into your own words. You must sort through the information to determine what information is important and what is unimportant. Take the most important information and put it in your own words and use as few words as possible to explain the text. This should be practiced throughout the story. So as you're reading, think about what you've read and try to put it in your own words. So first of all, think about, what is the story about? Is it about someone who goes, an astronaut in space? Is it about a pirate ship? Is it about a princess going to an unknown land or whatever? So what is the story about? Is it fiction or non-fiction? Okay, so fiction is a made-up story that's not real. Non-fiction is based on facts. It's true. It really happened. Who is telling the story? Okay, so these are things we're going to get into later on, a little bit later on too. Who is telling the story? Is the person who's telling the story just watching all the action? They're not in the story? Or is the person who's telling the story a part of the story? Are they telling the story about something that happened to them or something that they witnessed? Okay, what characters are in the story? Are the characters people? Are they animals? Are they aliens? Are they furniture? Okay, what are the characters? Describe the setting of the story. So the setting is where and when the story takes place. So is it happening today? Is it happening? Did it happen during the Stone Age? Is it somewhere in space? Okay, that type of thing. When and where. Retell the story using the key points. Okay, so basically this is summarizing, writing a summary. When you retell the story using the key points, the main points. You don't want to give all the details, just the main things. And what type of text are you reading? Is it a short story? Is it a novel? Is it a news article? What is it? And then why are you reading it? Are you reading it for enjoyment? Are you reading it because you have to for a course or for school or something like that? Okay, so these are the things that you think about when you're writing a summary. Who the character, basically the elements of a story. Okay, so let's practice using context clues. So first of all, what are context clues? So context clues are clues to the meaning of words that are, the clues are around the words. They're used in context. So for example, tact, number 1. Jane could have easily offended Bertha when she informed her that the dress did not fit her well, but Jane used tact and consideration when choosing her words so Bertha understood without being hurt. Okay, so what does the word tact mean? You may not have ever heard that word before, but because of the way it's used in the sentence, we should be able to figure out basically what it means. Okay, so this is using context clues. So Jane could have easily offended, so she could have said something hurtful when she told Bertha that the dress did not fit her well. But, so she didn't, obviously. She used tact and consideration when choosing her words. So she was careful when she was choosing her words so that Bertha got the idea without getting her feelings hurt. So we could say she was careful. Okay, and if we look tact up in a dictionary, it might not say careful. It might have some other meaning, but that's the idea behind it. Okay, number 2, emphatic. Her parents really wanted her to attend the local university, but Shaniqua argued her case so emphatically and with such great passion that her parents gave Shaniqua their consent. Should be a period there. So again, emphatic, what does it mean? Her parents really wanted her to attend the local university, but, so that means that she doesn't want to attend the university. She argued her case so emphatically and with such great passion. So emphatically and passionately. So she was really not the word we don't want to. So you think like we could think forceful, but not really forcefully. So so we could say passionately. Another word that we could use is I'm thinking more aggressive words, so not violently, not really forcefully. We could say forcefully. Oops, C-E. But forcefully is a bit too strong. Okay, so again, if you look that up in a dictionary, you might not see these words, but it's very similar. Number 3, amends. After Brian broke Darcy's heart this last time, he will have to make some serious amends if he ever wants to win her back. Okay, so after Brian broke Darcy's heart this last time, he will have to make some serious amends if he ever wants to win her back. So if he wants to get Darcy back, he has to make some serious amends. So he has to do something special. Do something really special in order to win her back. So, you know, your meaning of the word doesn't have to be one word. So as long as you're understanding. So in order, he will have to make some serious amends. He's going to have to do some serious fixing. Okay, conjecture. Stanley tried to determine the meaning of the vocabulary word, but there were so few clues in the sentence, all he could do was hopelessly conjecture as to what the word might mean. Okay, so he was, like we're doing, tried to determine the meaning of the vocabulary word. Okay, so this is our clue, but there were so few clues in the sentence, all he could do was hopelessly conjecture as to what the word might mean. So basically all he could do, if there's no clues, is guess what the word might mean or predict. Okay, number 5, ascertain. The clues in the sentence were so helpful, so this is the opposite. Stanley was able to ascertain the meaning of the word beyond a shadow of a doubt. So in this time, the clues in the sentence were so helpful, he was able to ascertain the meaning of the word. So he was able to understand the meaning of the word beyond the shadow of a doubt, or get the meaning of the word. Number 6, defer. Kyle really wanted to play basketball, but since it overlapped with the volleyball season, and since Carrie played volleyball, he would just have to defer his hoop dreams until next year when his relationship with her would be secure. So Kyle really wanted to play basketball, but since it overlapped with volleyball season, and since Carrie played volleyball, so he would just have to defer his hoop dreams until next year. So his hoop dreams, basically, he would have to defer playing basketball until next year, which means that he's not going to play basketball this year. He's going to play next year. So defer means to put off, okay, or postpone until next year. Okay, so that's using context clues. So if there's a word in a sentence that you don't know the meaning of, it's an unfamiliar word, and I mean, generally when we're reading, there will be unfamiliar words that we come up against, and so in order to understand what we're reading, we need to try to figure out what those words mean. And most of the time, there will be something in the sentence, either in the same sentence or before or after, that will give us some clues as to what the word means. And you might not get the exact meaning of the word, and that's fine, as long as you get the idea, get an idea of what the word means. And if it's not working, if you can't get it from the sentence, then you can go to a dictionary or even a thesaurus to find a synonym for it. Okay. So those are some of the strategies for helping you read. And like I said, reading comprehension is what we're studying in this lesson. So that's what we need to do. So now we're going to take a look at the short story. We'll take a quick look at it today, but we'll look more carefully at it Monday. So beginning on page 9 of your lesson is some information on the short story. And that continues for the next few pages, because then we start looking at the different parts of a short story, kind of like we looked at the different parts of a paragraph. Okay, so the different elements of the short story, and we kind of talked about some of these briefly already. So that will take you all the way up to page 14 in your lesson. Okay, so what is a short story? Okay, basically it's what it sounds like. It's a short story. So a short story is a work of short narrative prose, so narrative means a story, that is usually centered around one single event. Because it's a short story, you can't do too much with it. You want to keep it short, so you have to remember that it is limited in what it talks about. So you're going to have one, maybe two characters in the story, one main character, because you want to keep it short. It is limited in scope, and has an introduction, just like any story, body, and conclusion. Although a short story has much in common with a novel, because it's a story, it is written with much greater precision. Okay? It's more succinct, it's shorter, and it gets to the point a lot faster. So there are a lot of different elements of a short story, and these are the same elements that you find in a novel pretty much. So first is the setting. Okay, so the setting is a description, I mentioned this before, of where and when the story takes place. In a short story, there are fewer settings compared to a novel. The time is more limited. Ask yourself the following questions. Okay, so how is the setting created? So sometimes in a story, the setting will be described. Okay, so it might say it was a dark, gloomy night beside the ocean. The waves were crashing, very detailed. And it might tell you the day, the month, the year, type of the season, and everything. So consider geography, weather, time of day, social conditions, etc. Sometimes it might be more vague. It might just say it was a dark night, or it was a beautiful sunny afternoon. That's it. That's all it might tell you. Could be on the moon. We don't know. So you have to, from the things that are said in the story, you have to get the setting. The next thing you want to ask yourself is, what role does the setting play in the story? Is it an important part of the plot or theme? So for example, someone surviving in the wilderness, then the setting is very important because it's survival in the wilderness. Or is it just a backdrop against which the action takes place? Okay, so it might not be important at all in the story. Does the setting change? If so, how? Okay, do they move, the characters move from one place to another? Study the time period, which is also part of the setting. So present day, in the past, in the future, where? When was the story written? Does it take place in the present, past, or the future? And how does the time period affect the language, atmosphere, or social circumstances of the short story? So something written during the Middle Ages, the language is going to be different. They're going to use old British words and terms and accents and things like that. The atmosphere is probably going to be more gloomy and desperate. The social circumstances, lots of poverty and those types of things. So you have to think about the setting of the story and if it's important to the story. Okay, so it's the context in the scene or the story that describes the elements in which a story is taking place, including time, place, and environment. So again, when did it happen? Where does it take place? What's the social climate? So social climate is it, for example, anybody who's watching Bridgerton, obviously upper class, rich people, spoiled rich people type thing. If you're watching Harry Potter, it's fantasy. Okay, takes place in a fantastical world type thing. So those are the things that you have to think about, and if the setting is important to the story. Okay, so that is as much time as we have for today. So on Monday we'll continue on with the characteristics of a short story, and we'll have a look at the first key question. Okay, so in the meantime, try to get your key questions for lesson 1 all completed and sent out to me for marking, and get started on the key questions for first key question for lesson 1. Oops, sorry, starts up here. Read through the short story and then you can start answering the questions, but we will go over that in class on Monday. So if you want to wait till then, great. Okay, other than that, enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week, and I will talk to you again in class on Monday.